Time for our monthly look at the rural real estate market. Cockies love this segment because it tells them how much their most valuable asset is worth. Here's a good question, a starter for 10 for you, Peter Newbold, GM of PGG Wrightson. You're our expert in the field. Are farms worth less now than they were this time a year ago? Good afternoon.
Yeah, hi, Jamie. How are you? Oh, that's an interesting question. Yes, in some sectors it is. But again, you have to look at, location, where it is, what tier of property, etc. But yes, there has been some declines in some of the sectors, but then others have gone the other way. If you look at horticulture, for example.
There hasn't been a great deal of activity in traditionally the big areas for real estate, and I'm looking at, we'll start with the dairy industry because we're in a bit of a holding pattern at the moment. No one's quite sure how this M. bovis thing's going to play out.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Dairy had, it was back a little bit last year. I think we'll see a little bit of movement this year. Won't be a lot, but I think we'll see a bit of movement. I think there'll still be some challenges around the big units, and I believe the OIO has had an impact in that space, contrary to what others think. And maybe looking forward, I think we might see a little bit of change for those larger ones where maybe some of them are split to make them more affordable for New Zealanders, and maybe some of them, the more marginal ones, might go back to a different sort of farming.
Yeah, well, maybe if they've got good land, they might go to cropping. If it's more marginal, they might go back to sheep and beef, which are doing quite nicely at the moment. Are you seeing an increased demand for the grazing blocks, the support blocks? Because everyone I talk to in the dairy industry is trying to make their farm a fortress. They're trying to be self-contained. They're looking for that little grazing block down the road where they can winter their cows rather than have to send them to someone else's place where they face the risk of getting bovis.
Yeah, look, I think you're 100% correct. If you look at last year, that sector was slow in sales. We've already seen sort of late autumn and actually coming into winter, a little bit of movement in that area. And our feeling is as we come into early spring, that we'll see more sales in that part of the market, just for the reasons that you actually highlighted before. So I think we'll see more of those sort of properties come to the market and be sold.
Are we seeing the change of government, and more particularly the Overseas Investment Office, playing a hand in what's happening out there?
Yeah, I think it is, especially when you get into the larger and more specifically dairy units, because, they're big, they're expensive, and, a lot of New Zealanders don't have the means to actually buy some of those properties that might range from 20 million up to 50 or 60 or 70 million. So it's definitely had an impact there. The other thing also around values, I think in some cases some of those offshore purchases have maintained the value. So, yeah, I think it has had an impact, and there's a number of, we know of properties that have been withdrawn from the Overseas Investment Office. So, yeah, it has had an impact, contrary to some people's thoughts.
Lamb at $7 a kilogram plus for the coming season. Hopefully, fingers crossed there. Are we seeing more interest in some of those extensive properties, the sheep and beef properties with a bit of scope?
Yeah, we have. And, if you go back to those traditional farming areas, like the Otagos of this world, this last year was very quiet in what we'd call those sort of properties. But we're seeing already, if I look at what's being appraised and what we've got coming on the market from a listing perspective, there's more of them and of a really good quality. So I think we're going to see, I know we'll see more of them in the market and of a size which is economic in all parts of the country.
You mentioned, and let's finish on horticulture, star of the stable, no doubt about that, $1 million per canopy hectare for a kiwi fruit farm, 250 grand per hectare if you want to buy some grapes in the Marlborough region. Is this just continuing on in its merry way?
Yeah, we were discussing the other day at work. I think it will continue on. Whether there's a price point it all gets to where it will margin off, but I think if you look at all those industries, viticulture's matured, there's a lot of faith in the kiwi fruit and hort. I think it will continue on. I think there'll be strong interest in all those areas. Whether the prices will continue to push up, I guess the market will decide that. But I think there will be still strong interest especially in the horticulture.
Peter Newbold, thanks for your time. We'll catch you again next month, and we'll be looking at that spring market because that's traditionally when the farm sales start to take off. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie, and have a good day.